Content warning for discussions of child sexual abuse. Someplace underneath.
My mom calls me today on my birthday, and she always sings happy birthday to me, and it's so sweet.
Oh, okay. I thought it was going to end poorly.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just really sweet. It's done in a certain tempo. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Amber. Happy birthday to you.
I should sing it to you, but you have a better voice than me, so you should. I'm glad you did it.
Thank you. One of the saddest things I've ever seen was a birthday candle that sings to you.
Aww.
And I think it's for like lonely people so they can have someone to sing happy birthday to them.
I've spent a couple birthdays all alone.
Yeah.
We all go through our trials, right?
Of course, we're all adults here. We've all gotten drunk alone on our birthday.
I think actually you should at least once.
Yeah.
I spent a couple Thanksgivings and Christmases alone, and I got to tell you, highly recommend it.
It's kind of great.
Welcome to Some Place Underneath. I'm Allie Jean.
I'm Amber Nelson.
And it is, in fact, Amber's birthday. And we are not celebrating it in a way she probably would hope to, because we're going to talk about some horrible stuff today.
I love yapping. I love yapping about horrible things.
That's true.
Let's
That is
go.
your favorite. This was your birthday wish.
Let's talk about laws and Mormonism.
Yeah. I just like so many other episodes that we've had in the season, this could be in its own entire season going through what I consider issues in the law system, in the judicial system, and the criminal system in the Jello Belt in Utah specifically, but also around Arizona, Idaho, all those states where they are predominantly run by people inside of the church. And we're not going to do that. We're going to go through a big blitz today to get through what I find to be the most disturbing personally. Amber, you let me know if you have some other favorite laws that you want to talk about. We talked about the troubled teen industry last episode, and we maybe have figured out a little bit more of how this perfect storm kind of came together to get Mormons involved in reform camps.
Right, because they love, when kids don't behave perfectly, just, make them sweep the sand.
Yeah, and they love wilderness stuff, and that kind of works into that, and very much just wanting kids to stay in line and be perfect looking in a certain way. And they also love making money, which is something that those camps bring.
Right. A lot, I think it's 20 grand a year?
Girl, there's some that are so much more than that.
Damn.
It's like the economy in Utah, and it's probably one of the reasons they've been so hesitant, we'll talk about it today, to change the rules, is that it brings in millions and millions of dollars to the Utah economy.
Damn.
It is a huge market. And if you really peel that back, that means that their economy is thriving under child torture.
Oh, shit.
So how do the state laws play into these abominations? Kind of the same way parents get ultimate rights over their children's bodies, like they're a piece of the parent's property in these kinds of states. It is kind of playing right into those same laws that vary state by state. And there are certain states that are called more parents' rights states. And it really focuses on the parents' ability to manipulate the children however they deem necessary. So, you have the more stay off of my land, get government out of my pocket kind of places.
I mean, I would kind of get it. I wouldn't want the government involved, especially this government, in the raising of my child, my hypothetical child. Like, this is my home. I pay taxes here. I run this ship here. But then some parents, they can sell their kid off.
For sure, I understand that sentiment, and I think a lot of people do or would understand that. But the things that the less parent-friendly states are asking are not like, you need to make your kid try being trans. It's
Right.
like human rights things. And so when you're getting into a world in which you don't want the government to interfere because you're creating human rights violations against your children, like that is troubling. And it is the push and pull that we have to get as far as we claim the country is this free, we have all these freedoms and we're free here and free. But when we really look back and peel it away, sometimes people who are not mentally well, they think freedom means I can just batter my child or neglect them or keep them from society because I'm the parent and I say so.
Or not give them a birth certificate. That's the new trad thing now.
It's not even new, but we're more aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that has been very popular amongst like these high control groups. But now on social media, you're getting these people going like, life hack. Don't tell the government about your child. You can do whatever you want to them. Which is a new level of disturbing.
Right, because then
they're passing the message on to lots of people at once.
Right.
Yeah, and you don't want to not have record of your child. And that is one of those things where it's like, why don't you want a record of your child? Explain to me why. You can't just say, well, I don't want them putting a chip in my kid because that's mental illness. If you're saying it's because I want to be able to withhold education and, control their eating and stuff to a point where it's dangerous, like that as a society, I feel like we shouldn't accept.
No, and if they turn 18 and leave, good luck finding a job. If you're broke and you need a little bit of help, good luck getting food stamps.
Well, I think that's with some people who believe in not putting their kid on, socially, like giving them a social security card and stuff. Partly is it control so their kid never leaves.
You're right.
Because they can't. And that is sort of how those laws in states like Utah and other places can play into why these reform camps fit right in there, because they already have a bunch of laws in place saying you can tell your kid they have to go off with this man in the middle of the night and be taken to a camp for 5, 6, 7 months, a year, 2 years, because you're the parent, parents' rights.
Right.
So it works in that way too. And like you just said, none of us want to be pushed around by a bunch of pencil necks in Washington.
No, fuck them.
But there's a certain level of unhingedness that can arise when a state wants to allow you to do anything to your child. That's fucking scary. And to me, I see the states that push for personal freedoms tend towards selfishness a lot of the time. Like, rules for thee, not for me. I don't want to pay any taxes, but I want to utilize all the stuff that you guys pay taxes into all the time.
Right. My favorite is when I meet a libertarian and they're from a rich home. And they're just, and I'm like, yeah, the roads have already been built. Like your college has been paid for. Of course you can sit back and be like, I don't want my taxes go, because you've done nothing but benefit.
Yeah. And, there's a little stripe of libertarianism that is like, my mommy and daddy, they took care of me. I don't want it. It's a little bit of a brat situation where you're just like, I don't need to because I'm free. I have freedom.
Oh, that's another thing on social media, like the brat play. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Be an adult.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's just sort of like they think it's kind of a kink to be like, just kind of a bitch or a dick, And I'm like, grow up.
Oh, yeah.
Be an adult. Take responsibility for your actions. What do you mean brat play? Shut the fuck up. Sorry. I've been cursing too much.
I mean, that sounds annoying.
Right.
Yeah. So this idea of this sort of personal freedom thing, there's this level of entitlement that comes, in my opinion, with wanting no regulations on anything and yet getting mad when those no regulations cause your personal life issues. So like, it's like saying, I don't have the responsibility of paying your taxes, but I want all the stuff that taxes paid for. Utah fits really squarely in this category. Most of those spread out mountain states do, which likely has something to do with how separate people are, right? Like we know this about cities and places that are more spread out. Cities, people have to work together with people they don't know or like even or are really, really different. Whereas if you are in a space where nobody really is very different from you, you somehow develop this I think fear, entitlement.
Right. There's a thing called theory of mind, and that's when you're so alone. And I imagine if you're in these small communities where your neighbor is like miles and miles away. So you spend most of the time, you and your family. You forget that people operate differently than you, and they have different wants and needs and dreams and a different lifestyle because you're just in your town. So everybody must be like me. And if you're not exactly like me, well, you must be punished.
Yeah. And that's if you don't want to be around other people who aren't like you, that's your call, but then you don't get to dictate for everybody else. You know what I mean? Like you can't say everybody has to be like me or you're wrong kind of thing.
I want people different than me. I'm crazy.
Of course. I think it makes it more exciting. I actually don't want anybody to be like me, but that's a whole other issue. So, and one of the seemingly natural consequences of this mentality is that children's rights or autonomy don't really matter. They're just sort of objects for you to move around in this scenario, and that I'm this sort of theory I'm proposing, and this I'm the center. These are my little sculptures that I get to change, and they get to serve me in a lot of ways. And it's just baked into the culture to treat them like extensions of yourself because you're just an extension of God, right? So they're the little extensions of you, the little umbrella of security or whatever the fuck it's called.
Right. And then the kids can't wait to get up, grow up, and have their own kids, not because they love children, because I want to be the boss.
Right.
Like someone was the boss of me.
Yes. Oh, totally. Yeah. Which is something I've really learned over doing this show in the last few years, is just being like, oh, somebody asked me that once, I think on a live stream, just being like, how do you feel like with child abuse and stuff? And I really didn't understand until I started doing this show that some people, I always thought, oh, people abuse kids because they're over their heads, or they're like, there's something wrong. They didn't plan it. But then I'm like, oh, some people are thrilled to have children to hurt them.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind. I couldn't even wrap my mind around that for a while, just being like, oh, they're so hurt and so conditioned to think of children as things to push around that they're excited for the kids to abuse them. Anyway, happy birthday, Amber.
That got fucking dark.
And I do think I connect that to one of the many reasons we see LDS families exposing every private moment of their children on social media for money, because they're not autonomous beings with separate needs. They're just there to serve the whims of the greater thing. And we see that family line tracing back, like you just said, like Ruby Frankie. We see that with Lori Vallow's family. They were servants of their parents also. So like literally what you just said, they were servants to their parents, and then now their kids will be their servants, and they'll do what they will, including kill them if they feel like it. So this is a little excerpt from the Salt Lake Tribune. They did a series. It's mostly a podcast, but it's also in writing on the troubled teen institutions just a couple years ago, called Sent Away. This is a little excerpt.
Utah is considered a parents' rights state, which means that parents get to make medical decisions on behalf of their children. So if a child is in Utah for treatment, they aren't able to leave the facility unless their parents agree to it. That's not what it's like in other states. In California, for example, a child must consent to mental health treatment if they are 12 or older. In Washington state, that age is 13.
So what that is directly saying is that much like when you're allowing child marriage, that kid in Utah cannot leave the facility under any circumstance unless their parent tells them, or if like they're murdered and the police show up. In California, that can't happen. So it's another reason why Utah and those states around Utah in the Jello Belt became the central place for these facilities. Another point Megan Stokes, who's the director of the National Association of Therapeutic Schools and Programs, makes is that these reform schools can be filled out with employees who will work for little money in this world because they'll be conditioned to think of working there as a service calling. They're already conditioned to do free work for the temple, and they'll see this as, oh, well, you don't have to pay me much because I'm helping, even though you're not helping anything. And this is also, unfortunately, what will draw in deeply troubled adults who have no real way to sort out their own traumas and sometimes project that onto the children that they're overseeing being cruel and sadistic, because they're like, not only am I helping, I'm not getting paid much, so I'm doing this job because I want to hurt these kids, to punish them for acting out and not like adhering to God or whatever.
Dang.
And it's like all of those people have their own wounds they're not dealing with.
Yeah, this is like Disney level villainy, like Matilda, the lady that ate the chocolate cake. It's like that.
It is, but not as quirky, unfortunately. So that behavior can then be put through the lens of being spiritual, and which is really fucked up. And these programs are overseen by, in general, anywhere, by state laws and state licensing. And when you're in the Jello belt, this is a concern that the leanings will be to the licensing board to trust the highest up LDS people in the facilities, which at these usually mean at least a couple doctors. So a couple LDS doctors often are running these facilities. Not always. Sometimes it's just some dude, because that happens, because you can just open one. It's crazy. But a lot of times they'll have doctors there. And if the licensing people come through, though this has changed very recently, and we'll talk about that, for decades, they're kind of going to just go off of what those guys are saying. They're all priesthood holders. They're all saints. They're like, well, he says it's fine. He says he's a doctor. I guess it's fine if they're just being chained up to the wall. I don't know. What do I know? So there's an issue with this. The licensing in itself is being affected through the lens of being through LDS people, right? Yeah. So by every account that I could find in this research, breaking down the troubled teen industry crisis in regards to Utah and the states around it. And also, please listen to the long form podcast. It's called, again, Sent Away by the Salt Lake Tribune if you're really interested in this. The mentality of the laws on the books allow for these homes to be set up fairly easily. Like, you don't need that much, and it takes a couple months. You have to, like, jump through hoops. I'm sure you have to pay a bunch of money, but you can just be some person, and you can open one of these things up. But then the way the laws are set up in Utah is that it's very hard to shut them down. So you can open one up, but when there's a bunch of Gaetians and stuff, they usually don't close them. And it's really difficult the way the laws are set up to prove that they are doing harm, even when it's kind of obvious. So for example, one of the Salt Lake Tribune covered one such situation where a creature, I'll call him, by the name of Daniel Taylor set up in an imprisonment center that he was calling Integrity House, which is located in Cedar City, Utah. He opened it in the early 2000s. By the early 2010s, he had received multiple accusations of rape from the girls being sent to this place. He, by the way, is alleged to have personally participated in the kidnapping portion of getting the teens to his torture dungeons. I'm calling them torture dungeons. That's not what he's obviously calling them, but they are, to me, torture chambers. So
this is a way to just legally pick a woman off the street up and throw her in a room and rape her?
Yes, but not even a woman, a girl, a minor. In my opinion, that's what that is. But parents paid him to do that, and many others. So this guy, Daniel Taylor, he got accused of all these rapes. I'm making assumptions about where his mind space is. I don't know him. And I should mention that while he was arrested in 2013 for these assaults, the charges got dropped because allegedly, according to the legal paperwork, one of the girls admitted to exaggerating what happened to her.
I mean, she might have been stressed out. I know when I was young and bad things would happen, I'd be like, well, it wasn't that bad.
Of course.
I don't know, because you want it to stop.
Of course.
You want it to all go back to normal.
And beyond that, the others stand by their accusations. And frankly, I'm going to believe them over somebody whose common sense tells them that kidnapping a terrified minor in the night will somehow help them. Like, I don't trust you.
No.
Why would I ever believe that? But of course, it's Utah and it got dropped. We'll talk a little bit more about how they handle SA in Utah. All this is to say that after the arrest and the license board reviewed Integrity House, they didn't find any red flags. And they didn't shut it down, even after this guy was arrested for rape. And the home continued to operate without pause. Is it that the licensor is a bad person? Probably, I wouldn't say that. But is it the laws on the book are not there to actually protect children from real danger in these Jello Belt states? Because that's how I feel. I feel like the laws on the book are not there to help children and protect children. It's to control children. That's what it feels like to me. It's like the laws there are set much like in the church. If things look, as long as they look okay, superficially, they don't really care what happens behind closed doors. Parents' rights state.
Some of the most evil people I've met looked polished. 10 out of 10.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. We have to go beyond this as a society to think that there's like we're looking at them as movie characters because people hide behind all kinds of stuff. Doesn't mean that there aren't also gross, slovenly looking creeps too. There are.
Course,
don't worry.
yeah. Don't worry.
Don't worry. In fact, even though Daniel had stepped down as the head of that home after even after the charges were dropped, that he was still, there were a lot of people who had accused him. Even though he stepped down, his brother still ran it after he left. And so that went on. After all the accusations came out and everything, he got arrested. The charges got dropped, even though all these people are still saying this happened. This was not a long time ago. This was like 2013. And he stepped down, but his brother just kept running it. I'm like, I don't know if I trust your brother. But then they ran it for a while, and now it is still up and running, but it's under a new name called Havenwood Academy. And this is just but one of hundreds of these facilities. I'm just using it as an example, but I went to the Havenwood Academy website because a lot of these schools have been shut down, but this one is up. And so I went through their website, and it is still mostly LDS running it, though it looks like on the surface they're trying to take a more progressive approach with their clients.
Oh, God. Is it like those pastors with the jeans and the guitar? And they're like, I just want to talk to you about Jesus.
It feels a little bit like that, like they're talking more about traumas and stuff, but who knows? Like a lot of the worst of these programs looked beautiful on their websites. Like who knows what's going on in that place? In the 2022 report from the Salt Lake Tribune that was covering all of these places, the TTIs, they reported that in over 100 teen long-term programs in Utah, where tens of thousands of kids have been sent in the last decade, there had been no forced closures in recent years. And 2021 was the first time in 15 years any sort of new legislation about regulation concerns passed. So I say again, that was in 2022. A lot has changed in the last 2 years, basically, from when we're recording in 2025. But for the majority of the years that this shit was going on, they weren't doing anything, even though there were lots and lots and lots of people coming forward, trying to get stuff shut down, making accusations, filing lawsuits. Utah would not change anything. They didn't change any legislation for 15 years. And it sucks to say, but the reason it did end up changing was not because there was a quote unquote come to Jesus moment. They think Jesus wants you to beat the children.
That's what it says in the Bible. Beat the children.
Beat the children. It came down to Paris Hilton.
It comes down to money.
And fame and notoriety.
Yeah, and the look. Showing face.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. It was the social media backlash. And I guess as much as they love money, that would make sense. I mean, again, the troubled teen industry brings, maybe up until the last year or two, millions of dollars a year to Utah's economy. I got to say, even the positive news of the bill being passed is quite disturbing. So the new bills were first signed in 2021. Governor Cox, who I'm not a huge fan of by any stretch, but you take the W's when you can, he signed State Bill 127 in 2021. It creates new limits on the use of restraints, drugs, and isolation rooms in youth treatment programs. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, so they just tie you down and drug you up and leave you alone?
It's crazy that the bill had to express that now we'll limit it. I'm sorry, why is it there in the first place?
I can't imagine doing that.
Dude.
Tying someone up?
That's so, not even someone, a little kid.
A child.
What's really crazy.
Maybe if they're trying to hurt themselves, like if they were like trying to cut themselves, it'd be like, no, we're going to take your hands.
Well, that is something that does occur sometimes if it's a well-functioning, healthy hospital setting, that still has to happen sometimes. And it should be treated as this like absolute last case scenario.
And they're still fed and there's still nurses around.
Yes. In that situation, if it's done in a healthy way, but is done in an emergency, yes. That's not how any of these places were running. It's crazy they had to put a bill that these fucking adults were so horny for this kind of torture that they had to be like, we need to put laws on the thing that say like, you can't just go do that. So what's really crazy, again, that it is requiring to make this bill, this is a positive, it's requiring these facilities to make specific reports anytime restraints or medical sedation is required on a child, which lays out clearly that there wasn't anything requiring them to report what they were doing day to day in these places to the government, which, if you use your little noggin, wouldn't that make it a playground for people who wanted to hurt children?
And make money off it.
And make money off of it. Isn't that just like basic logic? I don't know. I guess I'm being crazy. But they had to make this bill that should have never been a problem in the first place. But now they have to report. If they have to restrain a child, if they have to give them drugs, that has to be put onto a piece of paper and sent into the government. That didn't happen before.
God, and you know they hate doing it. They're like, oh, these bullshit laws I got to write every time I tie Susie up to the ground.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, oh, the government's here to save everything. There needs to be a paper trail. If you're doing this shit to children, you can't just do it willy-nilly. There has to be a line of paperwork. Like, this is a serious thing that can destroy a child. Restraining a child one time can cause irreparable damage. Like, you can't just be doing that to everyone.
It's like a dog.
You shouldn't even do that to a dog.
You shouldn't even do that to a dog. But it's like those junkyard dogs just tied up to a stake.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a kid.
So it's also added in this bill, the licensing department needs to visit and do inspections 4 times per year, which seems to me to be a bare minimum common sense thing with vulnerable children. Why wasn't this already happening? We know the licensing board isn't perfect, but at least there's eyeballs checking in on these people multiple times a year. How did they not already have this in place? This just shows they really did not give a shit about what was happening to these kids in these houses, like the Utah, the Jello Belt area. This is all well and good, but it does take, again, having trust in the licensing board and all that. And I don't have a lot of trust in Utah's, to be honest, but I am glad that more people will bear witness to things. Or, other states like Idaho, which is arguably even more wildly aggressive about government overreach. Like, Idaho is its own creature, and it is very Mormon. And I wish I could leave it at that, but unfortunately, Utah seems to be weird about kids in a number of ways. I know I, Natalie, am but one hedonistic, progressive hag witch. But the way that I nurture, because I feel as though, of course, God ordained women to be the nurturers. And so I am. But I think the way that I feel that way is I'm very concerned and I fight for children's safety. It's something I am passionate about. And it's something that's sometimes to defend the right to a child's safety, even from their own parents. Because those kids who are in those situations with parents who are hurting them don't often have anyone on their side, and I think that's wrong.
Yeah, because kids can't fight back. Mm-hmm. They're too little.
I think that parents obviously need to have rights over their kids in many ways, but I don't think it's okay to look at kids as possessions. I just don't.
And they would never do this to a full-grown man. Just kidnap him off the street and sedate him and tie him to the ground. They want to do it to kids.
Because they can't.
Because they can.
Yeah, exactly, because the kids can't do anything about it.
It's kind of like every time I've taken like a boxing or jiu-jitsu class, there's always one low self-esteem guy that wants to do an illegal throw, illegal hit, because they would never do that to a man.
It's why I don't fuck around even in the stunt world anymore.
No.
There's always one guy, and you can't say anything when you're in the stunt community because you can't risk not getting jobs. And so there's one guy who will be sadistically fucked up and accidentally hurt you.
That happened to me. Ugh. Equal rights, equal fights. I'm like, you would never do this to a man. Do this to a guy your size. You fucking won't. Because you're a pussy ass bitch.
For sure. And also, yeah, if you take if you take martial arts, you take boxing stuff, you'll get hurt. That's part of it. But when it's somebody purposely doing something to hurt someone else, especially someone who's smaller than them, for no reason other than to be sadistic, then that's not okay. I know, call me crazy fucking progressive bitch. But yeah, exactly like you just said. Can you imagine doing these things? If this stuff happened to kids where they come into the middle of the night in their room, kidnap them out of their bed, restrain them in a building, they can't reach out to their families, they can't do any of these, this and this. If you do that to an adult guy, that would be like a federal crime.
Yeah, he would fight you back. He'd punch you in the face.
It'd be illegal.
It'd be illegal.
But in some of these states, perfectly fine to do to your child. So
that makes me mad.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's unbelievable. Like, it actually makes, I'm like gobsmacked that this happens. So again, I believe in fighting for children's rights. And I don't believe in a world where parents are given free rein to treat their children however they feel like. Utah, Idaho, and other parents' rights states disagree with me. And Utah is really, if anything, making it harder and worse for a kid to escape an abusive household. And what do I mean by this? Well, it already has this deeply conservative and religious backbone, but the added fervor of internet politics has really kicked up the dust on parents feeling victimized by the mean government.
Yeah.
You see a lot of that online. You see a lot of people proudly boasting that they'll do whatever they want to their children because they're the parents and they won't let the government control what they do. And that is happening in government. So we have some people in the Utah government, as well as other states, but in the Utah government who are very, what I would call far right, very prone to conspiratorial thinking, prone to making bad decisions, in my opinion. And they have recently proposed a bill which has passed as of a month or maybe 2 months after this recording, or prior to this recording. And it's part of a House bill, it's number 209, and they added homeschool amendments to it this year. HB 209 was created to attempt to get federal government out of Utah schools. And
what does that even mean?
So, you know how we're having all of these really intelligent, helpful, constructive conversations about how they don't want kids to have DEI, they don't want to learn about BLM and black people, and they're like erasing stuff out of history books. It is presenting itself in lots of different ways, and including in people who want the parents, kind of more parent rights states. They're not saying, oh, I want my kid to be able to have access to different kinds of education and really have a well-rounded experience. They're saying the government wants to teach my kid how to be a trans cat, and I refuse to let that happen.
But Trump is the government now.
I know.
You guys got it.
No,
it's you guys now.
Nope, not enough, apparently. I know, you'd think, I don't think there's a lot of logic going on in this argument.
You as a Republican want the government out of schools. The government is Republican now.
Yeah.
It's kind of got the whole house.
They're deleting whole sections of history from the websites right now. Isn't that what you guys wanted? So, no, not enough. So, HB 209 amendments, the way I can only describe it is heavily skewed towards right-wing ideology in general, though I know that there are some far leftist people who want that idea of the free-range school, or what's it called, unschooling or whatever.
God, can you imagine more of a far-right school? Because I know when I was a kid, I was very outspoken. And imagine just sitting in class and the teacher being like, well, women are meant to serve. And I know as a kid, I'd be like, how does this have to do with history and science? What are you talking about?
You probably would have gotten put in a home.
And I get put in a home and tied to a stake. And then what does that teach you? To shut up and go within? I would kill myself.
But I think a lot of those people internalize all of those things. I mean, I don't want you to just kill yourself, but
no, but I'm thinking logically, you don't even know that you're in prison in your brain. You're just I'm acting on just all the time.
I think sometimes instead of engaging in self-harm, some of those people become the sadistic adults. You know what I mean? Those people who feel all the pain as a kid, then it manifests and you grow up and you become the bad one. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you would, but
no. I was able to move to New York, and I discovered Prince, and I was like, "What is this?" But they're not doing that.
No. So there could be some leftist or whatever centrist people. I hate putting labels on everything. I try not to do it, but this idea of these amendments that happened this year are definitely towards the conservative mindset of stay away from my kids and try to stop making them, wear bras on their face or whatever they think is happening. So this is kind of skewed towards them, if you get my meaning. The example, for example, the community nonprofit group Utah Parents United, they're thrilled about this amendment passing. And, you know, they're the kind that post on their community page about how to get your kids out of DEI and discussions about Black Lives Matter. These are the majority, if not the entire, they're all basically LDS. They're all LDS people. So this bill has several parts, but the one I am mentioning here is something that I am passionate about because we've covered a number of cases, even before we were covering LDS, that cause irreparable damage that are affected by this idea of parental freedom, which are the homeschool amendments that have now been put into law in Utah, which is, you know, I'm a non-parent. I have a lot of misgivings about homeschool. I know some people homeschool very in a healthy way, but at the very least, I have anecdotal evidence. I can provide you references to a number of cases where we have seen tragedies that occur when children are isolated. Homeschool rules vary state to state. And in parents' rights states like Utah, there's not a lot of oversight for homeschooling parents, nor are there many requirements. However, with these new amendments, I really struggle to understand how this can benefit children at all. The way that they've made the changes, because there already was barely any oversight on homeschool kids.
Damn. You know, if you want to teach your kids extra, but a big part of school is socialization and seeing other people, seeing what they live.
And some schooling parents do integrate their kids into stuff, and those kids do get to see other people. I just want to add that caveat because I know that there are plenty of really good homeschooling parents.
Yeah. I met a kid who was homeschooled, and he said that his mom eventually just kind of gave up and got sort of over it. And then he spent his whole high school sitting on the couch watching TV all day. And like, he's just kind of a shell of a human.
Yeah. No, I have a friend I've mentioned on the show before who I found out as an adult after we started covering stuff on the show that I knew she had been homeschooled and been kind of like educationally neglected, but informed me, you guys covered IBLP. That's the booklets I used to get from my dad. And he just like he would like give her IBLP education, but like just hand her the pamphlet.
I saw a Scientology book for kids, and it was already teaching them, don't say certain words, say this instead. And I was like, oh, you're indoctrinating them.
That is definitely a good step in the right direction to get you into, what is it called?
A cult mindset?
No, I was thinking of, what is it called? Going clear.
Right.
So the homeschool bill that I'm referencing was sponsored and co-sponsored by 8 Utah representatives and Senator Daniel McKay. Every single one of them are LDS, including one that is an openly proud white nationalist. We'll talk about him more in one of the upcoming episodes. Nearly everyone, I think, but one of those people went to BYU, by the way. So all of the reps and all the people who sponsored and co-sponsored putting this bill into place are extremely what I would call far right, also LDS. So let's look at these amendments. This is the general description.
This bill amends provisions related to homeschool affidavits.
Here are the highlighted provisions of it. I'm not going to make you read all of it, but here's like the highlights.
This bill clarifies when notification to homeschool is required from parents, removes the requirement for parents to submit an affidavit for students who begin homeschooling at the start of an academic year, removes the requirements for parents to attest to criminal background history, establishes procedures for local school boards to process letters of intent, removes liability from local school boards after student unenrollment, and makes technical changes. So I could have gone to jail for like setting a gas station on fire and then have a kid and then just go teach it.
You could have gone to jail now in Utah. You could have gone to jail for beating a child and still take your kid out of school without any oversight, which is what happens. So I'm going to say, obviously, we are not lawmakers. Bills are extremely complicated, as are laws. And there are many times you could say, well, we just don't understand this. Like, it's too complex. But I've listened to enough discussion about this bill to feel comfortable saying that this is, in fact, as clearly as you just heard it, it is removing the requirements for parents to attest to criminal background history. Beyond that, this bill is stating parents can pull their kids out of school at any time, do what they want, do not have to explain anything about what they're going to do with their children. And there will be less and less requirement to report anything about their children to the outside world. So this is a problem. I don't know how you can't see that this is a problem, but there are many, many instances where a child is only noted to be being abused because a teacher is a mandated reporter, right? And so when this happens in states where they have kind of crazy laws like this, a teacher can make a mandated report, right? They report the kid has bruises and stuff. CPS shows up to the home. They interview CPS. They maybe convince CPS everything's fine. They then pull that kid out of school. That kid is no longer seen. It's not that the abuse is stopping. It's that they're pulling the kid away from anybody who could report on the kid. This happens all the time, and it ends up with children dead all the time.
It doesn't even have to be abuse. What if one of your parent is like a narcissist?
Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's medical neglect. Sometimes it's
verbal abuse.
Sometimes they're just kept literally multiple cases where kids are kept in cages in their house.
God, I remember during COVID lockdown, I was sitting on my front porch just chilling, and I saw this woman, and then like I would say 8 feet behind her was this little girl, and she was yelling at her to quote unquote, "Hurry the fuck up, you little bitch." And I was just like, oh my God, she has to like go home and be with her all day. Can you imagine?
No.
Hurry the fuck up, you little bitch. To a child. She must have been like 8, 10 years old.
I can't. No, I can't. And that kid is going to have so much fucking trauma to deal with. God knows what will happen to them ultimately. It's a cycle. I mean, it's just this horrible. I'm sure that kid's mom, that woman's mom, talked to her like that too. And I'm not making an excuse, but like
it's a cycle of abuse.
You watch it happen, you know? So even without these added amendments they just put into this bill, it's already tough for a teacher or an outside adult to get that child any help. But this bill is essentially saying, mind your business. I'll beat the shit out of my kid if I want. If I want to hurt my child, I'll just take them away from your busybody eyes and the government can't do anything about it, which is what this bill is doing. Children die from this. It's not uncommon. Just one example is 12-year-old Gavin Peterson, who died from abuse in just 2024 after his parents were permitted to pull him from Utah schools, despite there being multiple DCFS reports regarding his neglect from the school. They were able to, this is before the bill. They have added more now measures so that even more kids will slip between the cracks. This little boy he died from neglect and abuse after his parents were sick of the teachers reporting that he was sick and starving and all this stuff, pulled him out. No one did any more checking on him for a year afterwards, and he died. And this is going to happen more. Instead of seeing this or seeing what happened to the Frankie children who were abandoned for weeks at a time with nobody checking in on them, these people in the Utah government said, oh, we should have less check. We should have fewer checks on children because the government can't tell me how much I starve them.
Right. My child is mine, not of the state.
Beyond that, please explain to me what benefit are they trying to claim on this bill would come to a child to allow a parent with a DV background to homeschool them? What is their rationale?
I guess they want to be like, well, we want to give everybody a chance after jail. And like, hey, I believe if you've been in prison, you should still vote.
But those people don't want to give people a chance in jail who were there for weed.
No.
But they don't care if you're there because you almost murdered a child, I guess. I don't understand what their fucking logic is. Beyond, I don't want you to know if I'm hurting my kid. Like, what other reason?
I think this is based on back when I was on Twitter, but when it got taken by Elon Musk and it became an incel playground, people were having these conversations and they said, I don't want my child to be a part of the state. Childhood is so magical. And it's kind of this like la la land, I guess, where they think that like it's all homemade pies and goodies. When obviously if you're spending, 15 hours a day on there, there's something wrong.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure, dude. And childhood is magical.
Yeah.
You think these kids who are isolated from their peers, they're having a grand time with their parents?
No, they're going to grow up and be like the children of the corn.
Those parents I can promise you none of those parents are fun to be around.
No.
Who are trying to pull their kids out of school like that.
And I remember they were also showing plates of food. And I remember even for a full-grown person, I was like, oh, that's like nothing. They'd have like 2 little bitty tacos. And they'd say, taco night, I'm so full.
Are you talking about a specific family?
No, not specifically.
Okay,
just
because I'm thinking of one right now. Sorry.
Oh, right. No, these are just certain accounts that I would go look at. I don't want to name them because I don't want to give them more traction, but it was just, they were far-right supremacists, and I'd be like, what are you guys talking about now? So they just like starve each other. It's a weird place.
It's a weird place. I don't care if you want to do that, but I do care if you're doing that to children. I do. Sorry.
Yeah.
So here's a couple other highlights from the spill, and then we'll move on. But I really just want to drive home how incredibly messed up this is.
A local school board may not require a parent or legal guardian of a school-aged child who attends a homeschool to maintain records of instruction or attendance, require credentials for individuals providing homeschool instruction, inspect homeschool facilities, or require standardized or other testing of homeschool students. So yeah, I guess nobody gives a shit.
Nope.
They don't give a shit.
That bill is saying, I'm not even, if I don't want to teach my children how to read, you can't do anything about it. That's what this bill is saying.
They're so based, Natalie. They're illiterate.
They're so based, they're illiterate is correct. So it's just like, if you're not doing anything insidious, why do you care whether a school board checks on your child? If you're not doing something fucking dark, why do you care? That's my question.
Right.
I fear for the children of Utah in these situations. It's already quite freewheeling. So now it's going to be much worse. They don't want you checking on the kids, but they don't mind you marrying them. So let's check in on where Utah stands in the child marriage poll in this godforsaken country. God. Since we did our series on child brides a couple seasons ago, the good news is that several states have pushed up the 18 no exception laws for marriage. That is good news. It's very sad that it's only happened in the last 5 years, thanks to people like Unchained at Last. But we have seen some progress. Utah is not one of them, unfortunately. I should add, though, that they aren't the worst offenders in the country. And they have made some steps, which is good, considering the dark child marriage past they have all the way back to Brigham Young. As it stands at this recording, Utah is, as of 2019, they had raised the legal age that you're able to marry from 15 to 16 under HB 234. 2 years later, 2021, they passed another bill that is not helpful, but is meant to look like they're doing something while they're still not changing the law, so that a man can't marry a 16 or 17-year-old. But that's not the case. You can still be an adult marrying a 16 or 17-year-old in Utah. 18, I would like to remind everybody, I know is young, but as we've discussed before on our Child Bride series, as an 18-year-old, you have human rights that children don't. And if you are married to an adult, I must stress, please listen to what I'm saying. If you are married to an adult in this country as a minor, you lose many of your human rights and cannot divorce who is now, for all intents and purposes, your guardian who can also rape you legally.
In 2025, lawmakers passed SB 76, which shortens the close-in age exception in child marriages to 4 years from 7 years, meaning 16 and 17-year-olds can marry someone no more than 4 years older, but does nothing to address the marriage age or protect 16 and 17-year-olds.
So that is a good step as well. That just happened like a month before we made this recording in 2025. That's not great. It's not what I would hope for, but it's better, which is to say up until 2019, a 15-year-old, well, I should say a like 20, early 20-something could marry a 15-year-old legally.
Ew, that's like those guys at all those high school parties.
Mm-hmm.
I remember showing up to one and my aunt was the principal, so the coach was there, like all the coach guys, and they were checking out all the underage girls, and they saw me and skedaddled. And I remember feeling like, oh, I hate feeling like a narc or whatever. I didn't know what the word then, but now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, get out of here.
Yeah,
you're a 33-year-old man. What are you doing at a high school party? Boo.
That's why they prey on kids, because kids are stupid.
Yeah.
Kids don't understand. You go and like, oh man. I mean, same. When I was hanging out with adults when I was that age, and I was like, man, they think I'm so cool. They think I'm so mature. Like, oh, no, they're creeps. Oh, people their own age don't hang out with them. Oh, understand now. But Utah is now saying essentially a 16-year-old can still be married off to somebody up to 23 and a 17-year-old to a 24-year-old, which isn't great. I'm glad it's tightened up because it used to be like a much older person could marry a 16-year-old. It's still nasty. They've now tightened the age gap. I'm not shocked, though, that they still want to give returning missionaries a crack at these soft-brained minor girls. Because they keep pushing into 18. They keep trying, activists keep trying to change it to 18 and up only in Utah. But the way that missionary work works for LDS people is like the guys go off, and when they come back, they're supposed to find their brides a lot of the time. And a lot of times, those guys are kind of fucking, damp little noodle boys, and nobody really likes them. But if they're return missionaries, they're going to impress 16-year-olds. So you got to marry those little missionary off so you can keep them in the church. Keep tithe payers going. So it makes sense they're not willing to change it to 18 because they need to manipulate the girls, essentially.
You just indoctrinate her in the home and school.
Or trap her.
Literally
trap her.
And if she has any sort of hullabaloo, lock her in a cage and then marry her off.
Technically.
This is slavery.
Technically, you could marry a 16-year-old and then send her to a troubled teen place as the husband. Like, if you really think about it. So there's that. Happy birthday, Amber.
Damn.
So, actually, before we go, I wanted to actually see. Oh, good. Idaho's one of the top states ranking when it comes to child marriage per capita. Oh, good.
Great.
Wait, I need to find this map. Hang on. No legislation to end child marriage in Idaho is currently pending. In 2020, lawmakers passed HB 466 in Idaho, which sets the marriage age at 16 but did not protect 16 or 17-year-olds. So I guess before 2020, it was some other age. I don't know what the age was prior to then. I don't see it. But they have a very high child marriage per capita rate in Idaho compared to other states, which is not surprising because Idaho is even more wild as far as, again, government. They don't want government because there's a lot of white nationalist sleeper cells. Don't worry, we're talking about that in the next, I think, 2 episodes from now.
Right. That was like a blip in the news that I was like, excuse me? They're like, oh, they're building these white nationalist like boxing rings and training rings.
Yeah. I mean, this is also not new. Like, this is right where Ruby Ridge was. This is like this has been a crime center for white nationalists for years, but really they've enjoyed the last decade or so of being really emboldened.
I don't understand what they're so mad about. You guys won.
A lot of them are gay. I'm not saying they're all closeted, but there's definitely some in there. A lot of them just feel impotent and they know that they're like not interesting people and they don't want to try. They just rather be mad at everybody else.
Right. What's their end goal here? So like all white people, 14-year-old girl they can rape regularly, and if they don't like her, they can throw her in a box.
Yeah, they do want those things, but ultimately they don't. They don't have a long-term plan is the scary part, because if they got all that stuff,
they'd still be mad.
They wouldn't suddenly be like, yay!
Yay, we did it!
I'm so happy! They'd be mad about something else. They need therapy, and they won't get it. So that's where we are with that. Yeah, so Idaho is not doing great either, which is unsurprising. Same thing with Arizona, one of the other big states for LDS, won't set 18 plus. There is a bill pending, though. We'll see what happens. We'll see if Arizona does it. So far, no. There's a pending bill in 2025 as we're recording. And in 2018, thanks to activists like Unchained at Last, they pushed it up to 16. But if you're half listening to the years, let me just reiterate, all of those were pushed up in the last 5 years. This was not for the history of America. This was 12, 14. California's still 0, everyone.
Yeah, you could essentially right out the womb, wrap her in a swaddle and give her to a 35-year-old man.
You just have to find a judge who will sign off on it. Yeah, you could. So here's where we are with that. I cannot leave this section of our season, finally leaving here. I can't leave without discussing arguably the worst, in my opinion, part of the LDS web of government, which is the way they handle sexual abuse in court systems. Sexual abuse stemming from church authorities is being revealed in droves. We know this. We all know this. Everybody's aware the abuse isn't new, but the public calling out is. Again, please view floodlit.org to witness the vastness of this problem inside of the LDS Church. You would hope that in a just world, the political overlords would take a look at this and think, wow, How can we enact changes in our culture to reduce the suffering of these victims? How can we work to prevent new victims? No. Not on Todd Weiler's watch. Senator Todd, BYU grad, Mormon, guy who should probably have his hard drives perused. He saw those stats and said, come on, those guys aren't so bad. I bet they're sorry. We should stop being so harsh to sex offenders. And he presented this bill.
This bill amends provisions related to sex, kidnap, and child abuse offender registry. Highlighted provisions. This bill reduces the amount of time that must elapse before an offender who is on the sex, kidnap, and child abuse offender registry for an offense requiring lifetime registration is able to first petition for early removal from the registry and able to file an additional petition for early removal if the offender's previous position is denied.
In other words, I know that was a mouthful.
Yeah, I kind of like blah, blah, blah.
It's a lot of words. But in the mouthful that was, that is Todd Weiler, Senator Todd. He brought this bill up in recent months he spent his precious moments on this earth asking for people of Utah to allow sex offenders the chance to get off the registry sooner. So with all of the news about his church, about all of the horrible rampant sex abuse, what he said is, well, we need to make sure these guys get a chance to start over faster.
I thought Hollywood was where all the pedophile sex offenders are.
These are different pedophiles, Amber.
I thought this is where like the satanic cult pedophile.
And listen, we should say too, there's bullshit happening here. I don't know if you saw how many of Diddy's charges this was dropped.
Right.
Fucking God, everybody's making me mad.
And he has supporters that threw baby oil. Who supports Diddy?
I will say that woman who was doing the baby oil thing is a performance artist.
Oh, okay.
But there were actual supporters out there. So they just like outside going, yay. But he didn't get bail. Sorry, Diddy. He thought he was getting out that day. But he has to wait sentencing while in jail still, which made me smile. Anyway, yeah, there are some Hollywood ones out there. Don't you worry. But Todd here thinks that if they're LDS, they should get a little bit more of a chance.
Right, because they're good guys. They tuck in their shirts. They look good. And they've suffered as a child, you know. So you can't just like make them suffer anymore. Like now their time as a man is to own a woman and child.
Yeah, and like he actually said the words, some of these offenders, you know, they've been on the registry. They can't even take their kids to the park. And isn't that sad? We want to be able to make sure that they can't be identified.
Right, and put them around other kids. Let's put them around your kids.
Yeah, make sure that they can be around a bunch of children. So, to be fair, also, there were lots of people disgusted with him bringing this amendment to the floor, including other Republican legislators. In true Mormon form, one woman was quoted as saying,
"This is a stinky, disgusting bill."
I just love that she still didn't swear.
I love it too. I mean, that is a swear word for her. Stinky, disgusting.
Yeah. In regards to Todd's proposal. So there were many people who were not okay with this. But according to the website, it has passed as of May 2025. And maybe you're out there listening saying, well, hey, maybe it's because they're so tough on sex offenders in the state of Utah. That's why Todd brought this up, because he's just like, we're the toughest state on sex offenders. To which I say, no. They are not. Utah is by far not the only state to have abhorrent rules and laws for people in jail for sex crimes, but they're pretty far up on the chart of not having good laws and rules for people in jail for sex crimes. And I don't mean, oh, they're so cruel to sex offenders. I mean, they are ill-equipped and far too light on sentencing them. Maybe because a lot of them are in the courts. I don't know. This once again comes down, in my opinion, to their heavy lack of understanding of sexuality and consent inside the LDS community, and that people in the church make the laws, and they don't understand what consent is. Therefore, I don't think they're equipped to make laws for sex offenders. That's just how I feel, personally.
Yeah, who makes the laws here? Just the lawbreakers?
People who consider sex thoughts crimes. Like people who don't understand consent, who think, again, they consider in the LDS church masturbating, assaulting a child, being gay, sex outside of marriage, all is the same thing. They're all sins. So I don't trust their ability to make laws. I just don't. Sorry. A lot of people in Utah receive life sentences for their crimes. So that sounds like, wow, a lot of people get life in prison. But that, upon further inspection, is actually a little more than a gimmick. And while I'm very much, personally, I want prison reform. I want to end for-profit prisons, and I think we should empty out a lot of the prisons, except I think violent sexual criminals are often the ones who should be the most off the streets.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of people shouldn't be in jail. I do think sex crime people should be in jail because they are dangerous.
And that's something we don't know a lot about how the brain works, but I know for sure they don't stop after one.
Right.
They don't.
Most other crimes, there can be a reason. Even murder, there could be a logical
They broke in my
reason.
house.
Yes.
They molested my mom.
There is no reason logically to molest, rape, assault anyone, let alone a child, other than you are a dangerous parasite.
Yeah. There's
nothing.
There's a guy walking down my street and he just screams, rape, like in a very guttural throat, sort of like he's going to rape. He's like, I'm going to rape. And I'm like, oh, he's got to go somewhere. I haven't heard him in a while. So I think he was put somewhere special.
That's
At least he has to.
Good Lord.
Like, get him out. He can't be here.
No.
Get him out of here.
Absolutely not. Jesus.
Rape.
I guess he's at least letting you know.
I wish they all did that.
That's a dark joke, but you're getting a warning bell at least. So the sex offenders in general are not treated this way in most states, but Utah's really bad. We still are regularly seeing the Brock Turner sentiments in courtrooms across the United States, and Utah is front and center and wagging their fingers at heinous sex crimes, even of children, being like, but he has such a bright future ahead of him.
Oh, like a Brock Turner?
Yeah. So truly, truly dark and messed up, twisted, in my opinion. Utah parole board hearings, I kind of recommend you go check them out if you have any interest or you feel angry about what I'm saying. Go watch them because you can learn a lot from watching parole board hearings, and they are accessible online, a lot of them. So go watch for yourself. For both inmate and prison, board and parole officers in Utah are extremely fond of the words, like phrases like sex addict, porn addict, I've been going to church in prison, I have a bishop who's guiding me on the outside when I'm released, etc. And so the idea of being able to access these words and have them be accepted by the court systems in Utah is a problem. You don't molest children because you are a porn addict. I think I've screamed this enough on this season, but I'm going to say it again. No matter how much porn you consume, it does not make you go rape a child.
No, I've seen porn. No. None of
Absolutely
that.
not.
I don't even want to make a joke about it because it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's gross. It's insane to even be able to use that as a justification. But in some places like Utah, you can. You can say that and they will listen to you and be like, oh, he was a porn addict. Oh, okay. Well, he's speaking with his bishop now. Oh, okay. And it does carry weight in some of these. So
because now if I just looked at porn right now, they would call me a pedophile or something.
Well, they would say that you're a sinner and that if you're sitting in a room next to a guy who was molesting children his whole life, you guys are both sinners. You both have sexual sin. And, you both can just repent and be sorry about it. So let's go back to this idea of life in prison. In the state of Utah, and I'd love for anyone with info in other states that work this way, I don't know of any. When a judge hands down a sentence in Utah, no matter what they say, and a lot of times people are handed down life sentences, multiple life sentences. That prisoner then gets, sentenced. He or she goes to jail. They sit in jail and you're like, oh, okay, guess so that's a life sentence. You're like, well, is it a life sentence? Because sometimes life sentences are like 30 years and that's not really a life sentence. I'm not even talking about that. In Utah, people who are handed sentences are then essentially handed over to a parole board. Sometimes even if they are given life without parole in the court system, they can still be seen by a parole board in Utah. It consists, the parole board, of 5 people who are not judges. And in fact, the head of the parole board in Utah right now is a Mormon cop.
Oh,
Good news is that guy pursued a master's in clinical mental health counseling for the position, which is, okay, maybe he's trying to like understand this on a deeper level. Bad news is he got it from Liberty University.
Oh, right.
So I don't know if that's really helpful. The others who are currently on the board right now all appear to be from the church. A couple of them, it's hard to tell, but they have all the dog whistles in their bios that seems like they would come from LDS. But anyway, the long and short of it is that many sex offenders, specifically, even if they are given long periods in jail, are often incarcerated very briefly, and they get off with only Mormon-style reforms offered to them in prison. So when these SOs go into jail, and this is true in other places too, they offer these programs, right? When you're in jail as a sex offender, if you want to get out sooner than your sentence, they can take this course about like why you shouldn't rape a baby.
Consent. Why you shouldn't rape a baby.
It's crazy,
101.
but like that is what they like. It's crazy, but that's seriously how some of the classes go.
Raping babies, bad.
Mm-hmm. No. But in some of them, you know, they're getting taught like what empathy is and how like your crimes actually hurt. It's so insane, but some people have to be taught this.
That's what my mother said. She's like, I had to be taught empathy because I just didn't have it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do 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 do, like the Twilight Zone. Yeah. Like, oh my God.
But you could argue, I don't know if somebody who goes to the level of doing something like that can be reformed. I don't know. But some states think you can. However, in places like Utah, a lot of these programs have a Mormon skew to them. It's not avoidable in these kind of states because everybody's LDS. So they're getting these like programs, and there's programs like these programs. Okay, so all of this isn't in jail. Just in general, there's all these sex addict programs. You know, Jody Hildebrandt used to run one. They have one called Men of Moroni through the church, which is just about conquering your sexual urges. That's the kind of stuff they get in jail too, and it's insane, Amber. Go check out menofmoroni.org.
Right now. Everything's about conquering with them, like a war.
But
conquer.
You can't conquer sexual thoughts.
No.
That's ridiculous.
Decide, commit, focus, succeed. The sexual self-mastery for LDS men.
And there's a clip art picture of a knight.
Oh. You just don't, they're just telling themselves not to jack off, and they're acting like they're going to the Crusades.
Yes. And it's also not teaching them anything about why it's harmful to other people if you hurt them. It's just like, fix your thoughts. Your thoughts need to be like a knights in armor.
Right. You're not going to punch the drywall. Not at all.
No, certainly not.
The goal is to train men to leave pornography behind and discover their spiritual gifts. So at the end of the day, what would they even describe as porn? Me showing a shoulder?
Who knows? Nothing healthy. So this is the kind of stuff that happens in these programs. This as a rule, in general, there's nothing that says this is going to prevent reoffending. It just doesn't. What it does is it gets disturbed sex offenders to retreat further into themselves, learn how to compartmentalize better, and learn how to offend more quietly, all the while thinking they're fine because they're doing the stuff their temple recommends, so God must be fine with it. These programs are bad for people is what I'm saying.
Oh, you know what they should do is start one of those kid schools.
For sex offenders? I would love that.
No, they get a sex offender and be like, oh, I did bad. And be like, I want to start one of those
Amber,
schools.
I mean, they kind of do that.
So I can kidnap little girls and rape them and get money and do it legally.
They are already kind of doing that, unfortunately. So something that we can't really also, by the way, this is a very sidebar. We're going to almost wrap up this episode. But something that's so bizarre to me about sex offender sentencing in this country in general, there is this thing that both the U.S. and Canada criminal systems use, and maybe other countries. It's called a static 99. This is this one-page questionnaire that determines an adult male's risk of reoffending a sex crime. Ever lived with a lover for at least 2 years? Yes or no is one of the points in this. What is that?
What does it even mean?
And prior convictions for other things.
Oh, because you're not married, so it's therefore a crime.
Any male victims? Yes or no?
Oh, that's the serious one when you rape other men, because men are people and you raped another person. But if you rape a woman, come on, shame on you. There's somebody's property.
Yeah.
She might back out on her husband.
And this is not LDS based. It's just a weird part about culture that I don't understand. this thing is so weird. You guys can look it up online. It's called a Static 99R. You can find the questionnaire. It's in public viewing. But I don't understand it. It was created by 2 doctors, but I am disturbed at it. It is disturbing to me that as a society we are collecting, I guess they must have collected data to come up with these questions, but like sex abusers are so like we don't understand them as a society and a culture. They're complex. And I don't understand how you think you can come to a determination from this handful of questions as to whether or not they're a danger to society. It is so bizarre to me, you guys. I recommend you look it up. Anyway, lastly, I would like to remind you all that there are sex offenders in every kind of group in existence, in and out of church, leftist, rightist, centrist, liberal, progressive, conservative, everywhere. And that includes judges, lawyers, and unfortunately, firemen. Oh. Like, for example, Judge Kevin Christensen and Fire Chief Ned Brady Hansen, both alleged to be LDS priesthood holders. The judges, for sure. And multiple people have come forward saying that the other guy was at least Mormon at one time. This happened just a few months ago prior to this recording. These 2 gentlemen were exchanging CSAM and having conversations, fantasizing about assaulting their own minor relatives over kick while in the employ in the county just north of Salt Lake City.
Wow.
This just happened. It is, again, a judge and a fire chief in Utah were doing this. And I've also seen some reports that the fire chief was caught first, and that judge who was exchanging CSAM with him gave him bail before the judge himself was also caught in this ring.
So, oh my God. So he's like, oh, this guy had CSAM. Let's give him bail. Also, do you have any of those pictures?
Yeah. They were already deep in cahoots when the fire chief was caught, and this judge released him on bail, all the while knowing the 2 of them had been exchanging it together. But then he was also caught.
Whoa.
So I'm gonna stress this is not just because I'm not bringing them just because they have LDS background, because there are other judges and fire chiefs who have done this who are not LDS. It can happen. But with the added pressure of sex thought crimes, are these people, like this judge, capable of making safe decisions for children in the Jello Belt? Are they? Because the last thing I'm leaving with you, even sex offenders in Utah who are not LDS reap the benefits of these really bad decisions in their court systems, in my opinion. Take Jared Morgan, who lives in Utah and moved around to Idaho and Arizona, but is not on record being LDS as far as I could find. An absolute parasite of a human being, Jared Morgan. He took multiple minor sex slaves, 2 of which were the daughters of his girlfriend, took them across state lines. He raped them for years. He would threaten them that he would commit suicide if they didn't comply. He would sometimes hold weapons to them. He injected at least one of them with hormones to try to keep them childlike. An absolute threat to humanity. Has no remorse, says the kids came onto him. He has 15 felony counts, was sentenced to 300 years in jail in Utah. But as we just discussed, this means very little. Go ahead and watch his parole hearings online if you'd like to. You can find them. The way the Utah criminal system works, in order to keep their rapists in jail, no matter how many years they have been sentenced to, the victims have to appear at parole hearings again and again and again, telling their stories, reliving the worst moments of their life, pleading with Utah to not release their abusers, because these sex offenders, even if they're given life in prison, are up for parole multiple times a decade.
And if they forget what they had for breakfast the morning of,
it doesn't even
the whole
matter.
Case.
Based on these parole hearings, based on the way that they use the Static 99, based on the way that they view sex crimes in this state, many times, even if they're given life sentences, they are released. And this is what happened with Jared Morgan. He is set to be released to parole in 2026.
What?
Even though he's only been in jail for 10 years out of his 300-year sentence.
And he kidnapped minors. Mm-hmm. And oh my, I'm looking at his mugshot right now. He's smiling. He knows he doesn't. It doesn't matter.
That is who matters to Utah. Is all I can say. Is these dudes, these men, and maybe they don't care about Jared Morgan, but the guys who are in the church who behave in this way, the rules are for them, and guys like Jared Morgan get to reap the benefits of that. So that is something that I think we all need to really face and address. And this is why churches like this, high control groups like this, are a problem for the greater good of society, because guys like this are now back out on the street. This man will absolutely re-victimize somebody.
Look at his mug. He's smiling. He doesn't give a he doesn't care.
He will ruin other lives, unquestionably. He's not reformed. He cannot be controlled. This is where Utah's priorities are. So this is what I'm saying to end this episode. Happy birthday!
Thank you.
Ever. Sorry, everyone. Coming up next week, Thomas Rousseau, Logan Smith, Stuart Rhodes, Michael Vanderbo, Scott Seddon. All of these extreme leaders have a stake in the hearts and minds of LDS men. If white nationalist groups prey on those who are the most isolated, how are they gaining members from within another high control group?